debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these 3.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Good evening, I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. Our top stories. The Home Secretary has expressed her full backing for the Met Police ahead of the Armistice weekend. During a meeting with Sir Mark Rowley, Suella Braverman told the police chief she was confident that any criminality will be dealt with robustly. The force says an exclusion zone will be in place, covering areas including Whitehall and Horse Guards Parade, effectively banning those on pro-Palestine marches. The Prime Minister is urging protesters to respect the commemorations. Rishi Sunak faces continued calls to sack the Home Secretary. She defied Downing Street by writing an article accusing the police of playing favourites with pro-Palestinian protesters. The Police Federation described her comments as unacceptable. 2 teenagers have been charged with racially aggravated criminal damage after Free Palestine was sprayed onto the cenotaph in Rochdale. One has also been charged with theft after poppy wreaths were taken from the base. Detective Chief Inspector Stuart Round said the damage has caused emotional distress in the local community. Israel's military says more than 100,000 Palestinians have moved from North to South Gaza in the last 2 days. Tens of thousands are thought to have made the journey today after the Israel Defense Forces opened an evacuation corridor. The deadline for that is over, and it's not yet clear when the next pause in fighting will begin. NatWest has scrapped about £7.6 million in potential payments to Dame Alison Rose over her role in the Nigel Farage debanking scandal. The former chief executive had been in line for an exit package of more than £10 million, but the board is now only giving her about 15% of that. Dame Alison says she's pleased that the bank cleared her of misconduct, but GB News presenter Nigel Farage says she failed in her duties.
She broke every rule in the Financial Conduct Authority rulebook. She breached my confidentiality. She told a complete lie about my financial situation, much to the amusement of my enemies. I was then forced to publish a subject access request, which contained a lot of very unpleasant and indeed deeply defamatory comments about me. And I had to do that to prove that the real reason I'd been debanked was because my views did not align with those of the bank.
This is GB News across the UK on television, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying, play GB News. Time now for Headliners.
Hello
Hello and welcome to Headliners, your first look at Saturday's newspapers. I'm Andrew Doyle, and joining me tonight are Silver Fox Bruce Devlin and Frosty Lone Wolf Nick Dixon.
Wow.
Well, a variation on Big Dog, you know?
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
No?
I'm a people person.
It's not about agreeing.
Are you?
Yes, he's known for being a great
tomorrow.
philanthropist. How are you, Bruce?
I'm fine.
Good to see you down this
nice
part
to see
of the world.
you as well,
Yes, looking cheery as ever.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I treated myself to an upgrade on Lumo.
What does that mean?
That I went on LMER.
Oh, I see.
Yes,
I see.
yes.
OK, well, good for you. Going up in the world.
Thank you.
Good to see. Let's have a look at those front pages before we kick off. We've got the Times leading with Respect Our Sacred Day, Sunak tells protesters. The Eye Weekend, Braverman faces sack for going rogue as PM prepares reshuffle. The Daily Telegraph, I'm afraid we've lost the visuals there, but I'll tell you what the Daily Telegraph is doing. Police ready to use force against protesters. There's the Eye that we've got there. We've got The Sun. They are leading with Noel Gallagher's mega divorce, and the Daily Mirror, torn apart. Those were your front pages. And we're going to kick off with the Daily Mail. Bruce, what are the Mail leading with on Saturday?
So they're leading with the PM, Rishi Rishi, is telling marchers respect our sacred ceremony. This is in wake of the planned demonstration tomorrow.
Yes, and the Met Police are saying they've now got round the clock guard of the cenotaph.
Yeah.
There are concerns that they think even up to 500,000 protesters might turn up. So there are tensions.
Yes, and there's metal fencing all around the Remembrance Field.
Yes.
And anyone that goes in that will be arrested.
So it's interesting this because, you know, I've made the case on the show before that, you know, we shouldn't be banning protests. I understand that there is a sensitivity around this particular date, around the armistice, but I think to ban it would be wrong. But what I think we need to do is the police to do their job. So when protesters step over the line into criminality, the police to actually do something, not just stand by where people are throwing fireworks at them or abusing people or calling for jihad or whatever else they were doing. You know, is that the way to go, Nick?
Yeah, I read your article, actually. It was very good. It was very good on the free speech aspect. Toby was saying to me you didn't think about the safety aspect enough, which is what you're saying now. There is a safety aspect.
Yes, of course.
If it goes ahead.
But part of the, you know, the point of liberalism is that it requires the law. It requires an adherence to the law and an application of the law, you know?
I would ban it. I totally disagree.
I know you would. I know you would. But
I'm not smart enough to beat your article, but I would ban it. But, I mean, look, someone made a point, if you don't protect your borders, you end up having to protect everything else. We have to now have little cordoned off areas around all our monuments. It is pretty disturbing. I mean, it is a massive part of our national story, World War I, World War II.
I am aware of that sensitivity, yes.
And you end up with a kind of tyranny of minorities, and I don't mean ethnically necessarily, but in every sense, you know, we're seeing with the sort of woke movement, very minor movements, whether it's a trans thing, whatever, end up dominating all of society. I think this is another example of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping, because of course there's been lots of stories as well as of other groups turning up to try and either protect the cenotaph or protect the remembrance events, and that there might be clashes. That's always a worry. But I do think, Bruce, peaceful protest in a civilised society has to be upheld. I would argue.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has a right to opinion, sort of thing. But as you say, it's just how that will be handled and what the police will do. But then we don't know what they're going to come up against necessarily.
We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. I think emotions are very high because of the choice of the date, but also some of the protesters at the Palestine marches have been effectively, you know, celebrating Hamas and that kind of thing. And so that obviously is very disturbing and disgusting. Yeah. And so that gets people even more angry, you know.
Rightly so. But don't you think it's somewhat disingenuous, Andrew, that they easily cancelled an EDL march? The Met Commissioner asked the Home Office and they said yes, cancelled. They cancelled all our rights during lockdowns, easy enough. Then there seems to be this, a lot of people are talking about this two-tier system. Swallow Braverman's implied that that's what we have. The police have denied it. But we do seem to have that. Another example was the ridiculous BLM marches during COVID. It was like, no, we're allowed to march for BLM, but that beats COVID.
I think that's my point, is the double standards. You know, applying the law equally obviates all of these issues, you know? But like you say, there have been so many examples where the police just haven't done their job, and the suggestion has been because they're ideologically not necessarily opposed to what the people are doing, you know?
And I do sympathise for the individual police officer dealing with a tough situation. It could be violent. But, yeah, there does seem to be an ideological issue. They deny it, but there seems to be something going on whereby there is this two-tier approach. It's certainly the perception of it.
Well, I think when Hizb ut-Tahrir are calling for jihad, nothing is done, and the police actually put out a tweet defending them and saying, well, jihad can mean anything.
And in a struggle.
Yeah, as opposed to, you know, arresting a Christian for praying silently. So kind of, there is a weirdness about it. We're going to move on to the Eye. Nick, they're going with Suella Braverman.
Yes, they've gone with Braverman faces sack for going rogue as PM prepares reshuffle. So they're saying Rishi Sunak has made the decision to fire Home Secretary, allies believe. So it's only a rumour.
So why is she so unpopular? I mean, I've seen this all day on Twitter. Everyone is going mad about sacking Braverman. What's the deal here? Yeah,
well, people have Suella, they have Braverman derangement syndrome. Yeah. We need to start talking about BDS, not to be confused with other things that are fetishes. But yeah, there's Braverman derangement syndrome. Everyone's got it, especially the sort of professional managerial class, the sort of Remainer class. If you speak to people, you know, from the kind of extended blob, they go absolutely mad when you mention Suella. They just call her inhuman. They just go insane. And there may be even some, I don't know if there's a racial element to it, but there is an element on the left, aspects of the left, where they're annoyed if, let's say, people of colour don't have the correct views. So I do wonder if that's going on.
What do you think of that, Bruce? I mean, I've seen some intimations of that, some evidence of that there's an anger because she's from an ethnic minority group, she should therefore not be Tory. I mean, I've even seen people sort of saying that, effectively.
But then people have been saying that for years about gay people, that they shouldn't be Tory.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, but what I have heard on the street is apparently, now I don't know if this is true or not.
Was this gossip? I hope so.
This is gossip. It's political gossip, because as you know, I'm in that Strangers Bar. Is it the Strangers Bar? Members Bar?
I know you're in some bars.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But apparently she's apparently trying to launch her own leadership campaign. There's a lot of infighting within the party. Now, I don't know whether this is true or not, but she is apparently trying to get sacked. So
well, we should emphasise this is just gossip.
This is conjecture, allegedly.
Okay.
This is stuff...
Well, it's all right. You're not defaming anyone, even if it is just gossip. But the point of that is, you know, there are always political machinations and people moving around and everything. But there does seem to be... There's people within the Tory party, within the government, who are going to revolt. Absolutely. You know, there's all of that going on. I mean...
There are said to be 60 Tory MPs who would revolt about this. And so there is a long-term play there where she appeals to the right of the party. Now, Christopher Hope on GB was saying, I think today, the danger of that is if they don't swing right, actually she's sort of alienated herself, so it might not be that straightforward. Right. But I think something will happen. If Sunak gets destroyed in this next election, I think something will happen.
But is this all because of her describing the marches as hate marches? Is it really about that?
Letter she wrote implying that the police were not dealing with it. There are people saying she inflamed it, she made it more difficult for the police, and she said there was this two-tier system, and she doesn't think about what she says. But you could argue it's all hysteria, because I think she just has an opinion. She's actually more in line with the British people than most of the political class are. That's the truth.
Right. OK, well, let's move on now from that. Oh, this is the Telegraph now? Yes, the Telegraph.
Yes, and this is Jeremy Hunt set on giving businesses £10 billion tax cut in autumn statement. So the Chancellor aims to boost long-term economic growth by extending full expensing so companies can write off the cost of investments. Now, will this apply to us as self-employed people in our tax returns then? Can we write off a lot of our investments or not?
Well, I hope so. I presume this is actually going to help the rich rather more. I mean, I'm not speculating about your income. I know you earn a lot from your various... Anyway, let's move on. But Nick, what do you make of this?
Well, as Liam Halligan said earlier on this channel, the economy is flatlining. The problem is we've got 0% GDP growth over the third quarter. It went up a tiny bit, then it went down, or the other way around, and it's ended up at 0%. So he needs to do something, and Tories want tax cuts, but he's saying we can't do any, we've got to be smart and careful. He's doing this business one, but he's not doing anything else. And there's also a political concern that if you do it too soon, people will have forgotten by the next election.
Well, I was going to ask to what extent this is really with one eye on the election. I mean, there seem to be a lot of things that the Tories are doing at the moment which feel a bit like, let's try and win people back, especially since there are suggestions that Starmer isn't actually doing as well as we thought.
Right, and partly because of the recent Israel stuff. Yeah, but the other argument is this is actually very minor, and he's delaying the real tax cuts until closer to the election.
Of course, there's a lot of people who say the Tories should just do a couple of really great things before they're out of office and sort of leave on a high.
When do you think he will call the election? Do you think it'll be this time next year?
Around that. I think that's what people are saying, and I don't think there's a chance they can win. I mean, I know there's... Well, I don't think so. I mean, because there are so many people within the traditional Conservative base who don't want to vote for Sunak.
We know what's going to happen. They get spanked. Farage comes in, Starmer messes up the country, Farage 2029. I've predicted it all.
This is Nick's prediction that Farage will be leading.
Going to go into the Conservative
Party?
Nick has predicted, and they do call him the Nostradamus of headliners.
Wow.
Well, they don't, but I've started that now. That's what we should do. OK, let's move on to this one. This is The Sun now. Who's got this? Bruce, what's going on the front of The Sun? Or is it Nick?
I'll do this one
It's Nick,
OK. It's my kind of thing. It's gossip.
Of course it's celebrity gossip. That's you all over.
Well, it's Oasis and they're Northern, so I'll do it. It's Noel's mega divorce. A mega divorce.
What's the difference between a divorce and a mega divorce?
I think money.
Is it just money?
I think it's money. Yeah.
Yes.
It should have been called the Wonder Divorce, maybe. Wonderwall. Anyway, doesn't make sense. So this is so he's going to lose a huge amount. I mean, he's going to lose his £8 million mansion in Hampshire, gutted, right?
Wow.
To his wife. And what songs did she write? Let's be really honest about it.
We don't know.
We don't know. Maybe they're really good.
We don't know.
We haven't heard them.
That's a lot.
I think it's very sad when anyone splits up. But what I do think is very interesting here, there is a diet version of Baileys. I've just seen an ad. Other drinks aren't available, and your club card price £8.
Yeah, but Noel won't need to worry. Well, Noel will now need to worry about
that's
this.
the thing.
Right, he's
he
broke
will need
now.
a Tesco club
It
card.
can make such a... In fact, on the Dinosaur Hour, the John Cleese show that's on GB News every Sunday at 9 p.m, which everyone should watch.
Seamless.
Isn't it? He mentioned that in his last divorce, he lost 20 million in the settlement. You just think, these figures are astronomical. I didn't realise that the spouse... You've got to get a prenup, as Kanye said.
And, of course, women initiate 75% of divorces when it's worked out pretty well for her. There is one positive, Andrew, which is she got on so badly, apparently, with Liam. These are just what it says in here. They had a turbulent relationship with Liam, which I think is the main kind of relationship one can have with Liam Gallagher. And
this is Noel.
That means... Yeah, no, but she had a turbulent relationship with Liam.
Oh, did he?
Which means that the potential for an Oasis reunion is back on because she's out of the picture.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's the positive.
And that's what you would like. You would like to see that.
Guy. Yeah, who wouldn't like to see that?
Well, 20 million sounds a bit like a champagne supernova, that, doesn't it?
Nice.
You want to use a metaphor.
Clever.
OK. Anyway, we've covered the Sun, so that is it for part one. But coming up, we've got a fake London mayor, very real expenses, and a very unusual accommodation review. Do not go anywhere.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Saturday's newspapers. I'm Andrew Doyle, joined with comedians Bruce Devlin and Nick Dixon, both looking very dashing tonight. We're going to start this section with Saturday's Telegraph and Sadiq Khan. Has he been replaced by a charmless robot?
Yeah, this is faked audio of Sadiq Khan dismissing Armistice Day shared among far-right groups. I think that's the Guardian headline, actually. You may have said Telegraph, but it doesn't really matter. The point is, there's been this deep fake going around of Sadiq Khan that we're told it's a deep fake. It is quite accurate. There's one of them that's less accurate where apparently he swears quite a lot. I haven't heard that one. The one I've heard, he says, I know we have Armistice Day on Saturday, but why should Londoners cancel the Palestinian March on Saturday? Why don't they have Remembrance Day next weekend? What's happening in Gaza is much bigger than this weekend, and it's current. Apart from maybe the line about next weekend, if you listen to it, it's incredibly accurate.
Yeah, but the script sounds fake to me.
But when you hear it, you think that is pretty much what he probably thinks. And it's incredibly convincing. I'm worried about these deep fakes, Andrew. I'm worried there'll be one of me saying something very moderate and reasonable, completely ruin my brand.
There already is. It's going around.
Oh, no.
What do you think? It's something about equity, diversity and inclusion and how supportive you are of it. Bruce, are you worried about it? Because there was one recently of Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
And it was him swearing a lot, and it was obviously not him. Well, no, but it sounded exactly like him. So I think ultimately...
Was it really Angela Rayner?
It was actually Angela Rayner, yeah. She does a remarkable impersonation of Keir Starmer. But don't you think this is a worry that with AI, you can recreate anyone's voice, you can make imagery, you can make them look like they're doing all sorts of things?
Well, this is the funny thing, and you will kind of balk at what I'm about to say. I was watching an interview with Cher, because that's how I spend my time, and they'd done an AI with her singing a Madonna song. And all joking aside from the fact that that's really fluffy, what she said was, I've fought so hard through all my life to be my original, authentic self, to do my own singing, to do my own acting. So now people can ostensibly just replace me or make me like someone else.
Yes.
So it wasn't until I'd heard Cher, because I remember being on this show going, AI, what a load of old nonsense.
Yes.
You know, we've had to bring about the production of this technology, but you're right, it's really dangerous because someone could AI.
They could. I love that Cher is the way that you've reached this realisation, because she has, you know, tried to be authentic self, hasn't she? You know, with a bit of surgery here and there.
Absolutely, but a little and often.
Why not? That is, I mean, look, seriously, I think there is something serious about this, because because it goes out there and it gets spread around the internet, and it could be something awful, and the lie sticks, doesn't it?
But
that can happen.
What you've just said, someone could do that about you, or someone could do that about me. And the thing is, as well, you have to remember that people want to believe the more negative.
They do. I mean, I've seen some clips being shared from GBNews where people are complaining about something that isn't even in the clip.
Right.
They haven't even attempted to modify it. They're just complaining about something that isn't there, and people believe it because they want to believe it.
The tweet headline, don't
exactly.
They? Yeah, I know. It's pretty depressing. Yes, I don't know. It's a brave new world, Andrew. I'm not sure, but I like this one because it's anti-Sadiq Khan. So
yeah, well, I knew you'd like that, but you know, these principles, they always come back to bite you in different ways. Is this any worse
than the real Sadiq Khan's opinions? Couldn't this AI do a better job of running London?
I mean, probably, yeah, let's be honest. OK, we're going to move on. This is still the Telegraph. Bruce, a story about some rather extravagant expenses. I couldn't believe this.
No, I couldn't believe this. There's a couple of questions I want to ask. So this is to do with Scotland, and it's our Health Secretary who has been shamed into refunding the taxpayer £11,000.
This is Michael Matheson.
Yes, Michael Matheson, £11,000 in iPad charges. Now, he was away on holiday. We don't know where, because I don't know why it would be so expensive. A lot of people have been speculating as to what he may or may not have been watching.
Oh, you mean streaming online?
Possibly, that kind of thing.
Let's assume it was all wholesome.
Yeah, it was maybe Nigella's Christmas special. But he did claim £10,935.74. I mean, what network are you on?
Well, OK, to be fair, so a friend of mine did this when he was in Australia, and he was downloading an app or something, and he forgot that he wasn't connected to the Wi-Fi, and it was doing it through 4G, and it cost hundreds and hundreds of pounds.
Right.
I think that's what's happened here, is he thought he was connected. Could that be it, Nick? Am I being too naive?
You're being very generous. I mean, we've all been away and been zapped by data roaming, but we kind of maybe knew it was going to happen, or we accepted it.
Yes.
I was in America and I just had to accept it. But this is taxpayers' money, and there was already a rule in place, and they already said you're supposed to not do this, you're supposed to replace your SIM.
He says he's admitted he didn't replace the SIM.
Yes, and what really bothers me is he's reflected long and hard and accepted that he was responsible. What's he been reflecting about? This is not an existential question. You owe the taxpayer thousands of pounds. How have you had to reflect on that? Now he's going to pay it under duress.
I think we need to reflect more by him letting us know what it was he was watching.
Absolutely, and what network he was on.
Probably something to do with tractors. That's the normal
thing. He paid £118,000 plus a year. he can afford to pay this
A more
back.
up-to-date iPad that uses less energy.
Right, good point.
There we go. All right, well, let's move on now to this next story in Saturday's Guardian. Nick, NatWest have made a decision about Alison Rose's payout. This is, of course, interesting from our perspective at GB News.
Indeed.
What's going on?
It's Dame Alison Rose forfeits $7.6 million as NatWest scraps bonus and share awards. And this is, of course, because of the ongoing Farage saga, which, let's face it, Nigel Farage has just comprehensively won. I mean, he's absolutely smashed it. She was going to get more than $10 million. Now she's going to get a measly $1.75 million.
Oh, poor her.
I know.
How is she going to cope?
Which is still
the long winter evenings.
I know.
You
And
know.
she can afford one iPad with that. But yeah, it's 1.57 million too much. And she's also got this ludicrous settlement where she'll get 60,000 towards helping find a new job. That's handy, isn't it? That's better than the job centre.
Yeah.
She'll get 395,000 towards legal fees, and she'll be handed one more share-based award worth 850,000. So she's still doing okay. But Farage has conclusively won this because she's lost millions out of it. And well, you should lose millions. I mean, you're spreading wokeness and you're defaming your customers.
To be honest, Nick, I resent
the culture at
all of these people getting these million bonuses, all these bankers. I mean, I just don't think anyone needs that much money. I know that's a bit of a lefty.
Very socialist.
Well, it is a lefty thing to say, and I am a lefty. But, you know, what bothers me about this is that you certainly shouldn't get millions for making a huge mistake, for debanking someone because you disagree with them, right? It's absolutely outrageous.
What I don't understand is £60,000 towards helping her find a new job. Where are they sending her for clothes? Chanel? Like, really? I mean...
Well, you do have to dress well for a new job. I mean, to be fair...
It kind of implies you're really rubbish at getting jobs, doesn't it? You need 60 grand.
Yeah, I need 60 grand to get out of bed. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but you've got to remember, these people, they're so used to opulence, aren't they? They can't do anything without... that will be nothing to her. That'll be pennies to her. She'll be thinking, how am I going to cope?
Yeah, but how much do you think she's personally to blame for the absurd woke culture?
Well, maybe she isn't, but I think ultimately when that kind of thing takes... You know, I mean, didn't she say she didn't know about what was happening with Farage?
Yeah.
So, you know, and that might be true, but even in that case, when you're in charge, you have to, the buck stops there, doesn't it? I would have thought. She's enabled a culture to flourish of that kind, and it's not on.
Yeah, and even the Guardians admit that it was because of Farage's political views. They tried to sort of wriggle out of it.
Oh, well, they can't now because the Freedom of Information requests have confirmed it. So there's no way they can wriggle out of it.
But you should not be rewarded for spreading wokeness. You should be punished.
Well, there we go.
Why are they also paying her legal fees if she was the person she did wrong?
I think people this rich just don't need financial support.
No.
Basically. OK, let's go back now to Saturday's Telegraph for some TripAdvisor-style feedback on the Bibby Stockholm. That's Bruce, the barge.
Yes, this is the barge that is in Portland in Dorset, I believe, and an official report claims that new arrivals say the accommodation is better than expected. Praise the support for... Sorry, I got that completely wrong. What they're basically saying is they prefer to be on the barge than they do in hotels.
Yes, well, a lot of people
don't like the hotels.
Were writing about the barge as if it was this horrible, you know, sort of Holiday Inn style accommodation. But actually, no offence to Holiday Inn, but I've had a bad experience there.
Okay.
But it could be, but apparently it's much, much better than that.
Well, apparently the male, they share 2, 4 or 6 to a room. They have a canteen offering 3 meals a day, gym space to play basketball. They have taken out the free weights, though. They're all getting multi-gyms now because there was a health and safety
That's still pretty good. I mean, I would have thought that
there's an NHS nurse.
Yeah, they go for walks, fishing, football,
English classes,
board games.
I don't know if there's any kind of cocktail-making classes or wine tasting or any of that kind of stuff.
Because if there is, you're applying.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, that's the thing, you know, the people in need, asylum seekers, you know, they do need accommodation that is reasonable. OK, this seems reasonable to me.
Yeah, we need to build more barges, never mind the housing crisis. We need to... These barges work, apparently. The good thing is, as well, a strong breeze could solve our immigration problems. But maybe that's too controversial. But the point is, it is quite impressive. They get a canteen, they get 3 meals a day, a gym, basketball, they've got a space for basketball, 5-a-side football, English language classes, and they get an onboard NHS GP and nurse service. That's more than most people in the country get. I mean, try getting getting a non-barge GP appointment.
But to be fair, they're not complaining. They're saying this is great. They're saying it's good.
And they're also saying when they're out and about, they felt no intimidation, which kind of puts pay to this idea we're this terrible racist nation.
Well, I saw one person who'd been housed in a hotel or somewhere. I think someone from the GB News was interviewing him, and he was complaining about, you know, the fact that, the cleaner wakes me up and all this sort of stuff, and it was really actually annoying to watch. But this is great that, you know, the people here they're actually saying, yeah, well, this is great what you've done for us. They're grateful.
There are a few complaints that they couldn't get packed lunches if they're away from the barge, but apparently if you book them the day before, you can get them.
Wow.
Nothing wrong with living on a barge. I think it's quite romantic.
No, did Cressida not live on a boat?
She did live on a boat. Yeah, she's only recently moved.
I didn't even mention it. You went from socialist there, Andrew, to sort of the most Tory thing. Let the migrants live on barges. Within the space of one story.
Because I'm you know, I'm
complex.
I'm complex.
Yeah.
This must be so much cheaper because apparently the bill for 51,000 asylum seekers being housed in hotels is a cost of £8 million a day.
Oh yes, no, it's much cheaper on the barge. So we need a lot more barges. Anyway, that's the end of part 2. See you in part 3 for the latest on the culture wars, a new move in Australian immigration, and a medical miracle. See you in 2. I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. Join me, Mark Dolan, Fridays and Saturdays from 9, Sundays from 10. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's
my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Dubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these 3.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Women. Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Saturday's newspapers. Kicking things off now with The Times, and this is another culture war story. Nick, we never do those.
Yes, sex education culture wars driving increase in STIs among children. It sounds very disturbing. It's basically teenagers that they mean. And this is Dame Rachel D'Souza saying she has a big concern about young people's sexual health amid a rise in diagnoses of gonorrhea, syphilis and chlamydia. Which probably sounds like the law firm that's representing Alison Rose, but and the problem is that the teenagers are saying, according to her, they're not being taught actual useful things.
No.
Like where's cool to go on a date and how to hide your personality. They're saying like they're being taught useless stuff about how to be a non-binary pansexual. I'm paraphrasing. That bit's not in there, but that's.
Well, no, I mean I've seen some of those teaching resources which go on about the pansexual muffins and stuff. The thing about the muffins, where you can have a different flavour
within the muffin that's different. You know, all this sort of stuff. So there is that nonsense going on. There's definitely the ideological stuff going on with sex education, which is a problem. But when it comes to sex education, don't kids kind of figure it out for themselves? I mean, did we really need all this stuff?
The problem is they're watching porn about it instead, which is...
So my mind is still in when I was at school, and you know, we didn't need all this stuff. Anyway, go on, Bruce.
Were you watching porn when you were at school?
Absolutely was not. I went to a convent school. How dare you?
Right, OK. So I don't think I did either, to be honest with you. I mean, I remember going and staying over at friends' houses, and I remember one... Actually, I do remember one guy called Nicky Cross. I shouldn't probably mention his name. I don't know who he is nowadays.
I hope this isn't an inappropriate anecdote.
No, but I remember that they had a jazz video on in the background once, and I was pretty appalled, actually.
Well, there we go.
Yeah.
There we go. But that's no substitute for sex education. But I think the argument is that unless children get proper sex education... I mean, that's interesting that the disease rates rise.
That's the thing that you should be taught about the most. You know, if you're not going to wear a glove, don't make love.
Very interesting. But, Nick, I've always heard that it's the other way around, that actually when there's more sex education, disease rates rise because children know more about it.
Yeah, we should go back to the old ways.
Yes.
Repression.
Shouting it's dirty.
Just massive repression. Yeah,
repression.
That's what this country was built on.
I think it was. OK, well, let's move on to this climate change story now. Bruce in The Guardian.
Yes, now, I hope I'm going to pronounce this correctly. This is Australia to offer residency to Tuvalu citizens.
I think you did very well.
Thank you, displaced by climate change. So Australia will offer residency to people affected by climate change in the low-lying Pacific nation of Tuvalu as part of a sweeping new treaty that also locks the two countries in close security ties. But the thing is, they are saying that Australia will only offer up 280 people access to permanent residence each year, which is not a huge amount.
No.
Because the overall population is 11,200.
OK. Nick, do you think this is the right way to go?
Well, it's hard for me to care about this story, Andrew. It's hard
because it's Australia?
No, it's hard for me to care about obscure countries that I'll never visit, like Australia, and also whatever Tuvalu is. But the one thing I did like about the story is that it's bad for China, because the deal is seen as a strategic win for the Australian government at a time when China has been vigorously pursuing closer ties with Pacific Island countries. So it's a win against China, so I like that.
Why does China want a country that's going to be washed under? See, what I'm worried about, because where I live in Edinburgh, in Leith, that's apparently not going to be there in 30 years' time.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, it is by the canal, isn't it?
I own 3 flats.
Oh.
So I want my money back.
I think get a flat in Tuvalu.
Proclaimers have to rewrite that song, Sunshine on Leith. By the way, I
don't think they do.
Flooded on Leith. But quick point as well. Maybe this is just a ploy to get really nice beachfront property. You know how like Obama and everyone has claiming they care about climate change and they put all the beach on
Malibu.
Yeah. They'll be like, move away. It's all going to sink. Then they move in and.
I think you've nailed that one, Nick. OK, let's move on now to Saturday's Independent. Nick, this is an absolutely horrible story. Climate protesters. What's happened here?
Oh yeah, this is elderly lawyer shoots dead 2 climate protesters blocking highway. And it is Kenneth Darlington, a retired American lawyer and university professor who lives in Panama. And I have to say, right or wrong, he's become an instant meme with his picture of him with a gun.
We should say that it has been reported to be Kenneth Darlington, but not confirmed. So it's been...
Yeah. Not officially named.
Not officially named,
exactly. The suspect's been widely reported. And that means it's already all over X.
Of course
Twitter.
it is.
He's an instant meme, the picture of this guy with a gun.
So why is that?
He went full falling down. If you've seen Michael Douglas falling down, he said, I can't take this anymore, I've had enough. He got out and just started waving.
Because the problem here is that you see those videos, don't you, with these climate protesters blocking traffic, and sometimes people push by them in their cars, sometimes they hit them, it gets tensions are very high.
Well, there was that woman over here who, she got a driving conviction, I think. She was in a Range Rover and she drove forward.
Yes.
And I think basically she shouldn't have done it, but then should they have been in the road?
Well, so that's it. But of course you shouldn't do what this guy did if he did this. I mean, this is absolutely appalling.
Then are we surprised with gun laws being the way that they are in America, that wasn't going to happen, if you see what I mean?
Well, that's the point when Nick mentions falling down. The whole point is that when someone has a gun in their bag and they see red and they lose their temper, I mean, this is a good reason to have gun control, right?
Yeah, I mean, apparently the people shouted at him, we're not leaving, and someone said, hey, why didn't you shoot him? And then he actually did. I mean, it was bound to happen. We've all seen the videos. I'm not excusing it, but we've all seen the videos of climate protesters, and violence was bound to happen. And like Bruce said, we've already seen a more English minor version of it. So it was bound to happen at some
It probably was, but it doesn't make it any less tragic. Anyway, moving on. What's this? Waiters with big muscles. Telegraph, that's your story, Bruce.
Yeah, no, this is my story. I've never been a waiter, though. So waiters spiked with steroids to boost performance. Police swoop on an Alicante restaurant following staff complaints of bigger muscles, deeper voices after taking boss's supplements. Now, how they were kind of tricked into this, I don't know.
Well, no, the bosses said you should take these vitamin supplements.
Yes, so they lied.
And then they suddenly, oh, hang on a minute, I'm now twice the size with a deep voice.
But this was the thing. A waitress raised the alarm after suffering side effects. She didn't laugh, including hair loss, a lack of appetite, bigger muscles and a deeper voice.
Yeah.
Everything other than the hair loss, I'm up for, by the way.
Yes.
So I'd like to know where these special vitamins
this
are.
poor woman.
Free trans surgery.
Right, yeah, she ended up looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know, it's very sad.
And then she was very upset because the medication had been passed on to her 17-year-old son who was working shifts at the same restaurant.
What I don't understand is it's all very well him tricking them by giving them vitamin supplements. There were injections here.
But
why would you do that? I'm not going to take an injection that the boss tells me to take.
Well,
it could be anything.
But let's remember this is all in Spain. You've seen how they drive. I mean, it's just a different world. But this, yeah, it also messed up her stomach lining and caused ulceration. So it is a serious thing. I mean, they were drugging them with, because it sounds cool as a man, like, oh, get some free testosterone, but it's actually incredibly dangerous.
Well, I mean, it's just outright illegal, right? Of course.
Yeah, it's definitely not legal.
But that's the thing. I don't understand why they gave the consent to being injected against the will.
I don't understand that. And also, why would a boss need muscular waiters?
Well, I mean, depends on what type of emporium that they are.
Well, that's true. But I don't think this was that kind of emporium.
I think this was just basically so that people went smarter and faster and harder.
Yeah, what's wrong with speed? I mean...
Oh, OK.
It's an open question. It's not related to this story. It's just something I was thinking about.
What a bizarre story. OK, we're going to move on now to this next story with The Sun, Nick. This is more of a... slightly happy ending, I think.
Well, yeah, it's a very dark story. It's man burned from the inside out in a 7,200-volt electrocution gets world's first eye transplant.
It's a dark story, but a happy ending.
Yes.
He gets the eye transplant.
He gets the eye transplant. It's Aaron James from Arkansas, and he lost his left arm, nose, and lips. It's horrendous, but he did manage to. They've salvaged his eye. They don't know actually if he'll get his sight back yet.
Because they've never done that before, right?
No, they've never done it before. But there's blood flow to the retina, so there is potentially he will. And yeah, they've done their best, and it's. And this we have to give a tribute again to men doing the dangerous jobs. This is a thing we hear about now. It's been pointed out on the internet, you know, men don't get the credit. We do the most dangerous jobs. Well, not we, but this...
you most certainly do. I think what you're doing is...
I myself immediate credit there.
Very perilous.
I could get cancelled, Andrew, being on this channel.
You could.
But he's a high-voltage lineman. I mean, that is a very dangerous job, and that's what we've seen here. I mean... This, you know, so I do want to say, shout out to all the men doing these tough jobs.
Well, absolutely. But I mean, I think what we do is very tough as well, sitting here talking.
I think
very dangerous in many ways. I mean, we get nasty tweets, don't we? You don't get that if you work on an oil rig.
No, that's true, actually. If you're offshore, you know, you're not contactable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you're laughing at my point, but it's what Jordan Peterson always said. The men working on the infrastructure, and nobody gives them credit. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
It was a good excuse to do your Jordan Peterson impersonation. Bruce, I mean, it's good news, though, that the technology has advanced to such a degree that you can have an eye transplant, you can get some semblance of a life back.
That's it. But I know a lot of people. I don't know. Are you both kidney donors or organ donors or whatever? Because I know a lot.
No, I haven't done that yet.
Right. So a lot of people will say everything except the eyes because there is a specific question. So yeah.
Yeah, the eyes will never be able to. It hasn't been done before.
The Egyptians kept everything with them. That's what I believe in.
Oh, you want to be mummified, do you?
Not mummified, but you know the pharaohs had everything in their tomb in case they needed it.
I think, well, thanks for letting me know, because I'll bear that in mind for your funeral.
The nipples are the eyes of the face.
Interesting phrase. It's time for a break on that note. Don't go to bed just yet, because coming up we'll be discussing holidays, self-checkouts, and asking, can you eat bugs and be happy? See you in a few minutes.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
This time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows,
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. Join me, Mark Dolan, Fridays and Saturdays from 9, Sundays from 10. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the final part of Headliners, your first look at Saturday's newspapers. Let's get straight back into it with the Daily Star. They've got some big news about a huge advance in medical training, Bruce.
Well, huge being the right word, and I do kind of take offence to this because, as you know, I do go up and down, and it's about obesity and a female dummy.
But don't take it personally.
With big breasts built for medical students for realistic training.
You just saw yourself in that.
Well, no, I didn't actually. It's just, I do kind of just feel as though, why do I get these stories?
It's not deliberate, Bruce.
Anyway,
it's perfectly random.
A UK university has launched what it's thought to be the world's first very overweight mannequin for medical students in recognition of rising obesity rates in England. And I'm sure that there's obesity rates all over the United Kingdom.
Yes.
A UK university has introduced what is believed the world's first overweight mannequin.
But this makes sense, doesn't it? You know, doctors are going to have to treat obese patients, and if they've only practiced on these little scrawny, unrealistic body image mannequins, then they're not going to be able to deal with it, are they?
Well, how big are the breasts?
Well, it doesn't actually specify how big the breasts are.
It doesn't give you a cup size or anything like that,
no.
So I'm not necessarily...
Nick, I'm all for that. I mean, surely it's just a necessity of training.
Yeah, but it's a kind of just adapting rather than solving the problem, isn't it? Instead of solving the problem of being overweight, it's fat mannequins, you know what I mean? Like, we haven't actually solved the root problem, so it's kind of just a degeneracy of...
Well, how do you...
It's our culture degenerating.
How would you solve
it's practical
it? You
at this
can't ban
stage.
cakes
No,
or
I know,
something.
at this stage it's practical, and, yeah, it's inevitable. I mean, it's, you know... We haven't asked its political views, it's probably left-wing. But the movie would have been very different, wouldn't it? Remember the mannequin, the film?
I do.
We should have used this fat mannequin.
Well, it would be a bit more like Weekend at Bernie's, wouldn't it? Them running around with a big man.
Yes.
That's the right film, isn't it?
I don't know.
I think it is. Well, no, I think this makes sense to me. I don't think it's like a woke thing or anything like that. I think it's just that the doctors...
No, but don't you think it's a sad sign of decline, though?
Well, you know, I mean, I think there has been a tendency of late to suggest from the body positivity movement that there are no medical downsides to being obese, which is factually false. Yeah. And, you know, and I think that might be part of the problem.
And there's so many new words, isn't there? Like curves.
Yes.
And rugby build if you're a guy.
Oh, is that right?
That just means you're...
And look, sorry to say, I say this as someone who's also been, you know, on a weight loss journey since I've lost loads of weight since May. I got bullied as a kid about it, so it's not like I'm from my high horse of thinness.
No,
I don't. It's a tough thing to lose weight. I understand that. I'm just saying that fat mannequins are a kind of sad sign of the times. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, well, fat mannequins, very interesting.
Because the mannequin flew through the air, didn't it?
What, in the film?
It's like the song.
I think it did. Yeah.
I'll have to watch Mannequin again with Kim Cattrall.
Kim Cattrall.
I will.
You're going to anyway.
I will. And there's a sequel. I can't remember what that one's called. Probably Mannequin 2, I would have thought. Okay, we're going to move on to Saturday's Daily Mail. Nick, this is a story about the future of food.
Yes, you shall eat the bugs. Eat the bugs and you'll be happy. It's a hoppy meal they've gone with as a sort of pun there. Pop-up restaurant is serving meat dishes, but meat is in inverted commas for our radio listeners, made from crickets, and the owners claim they're selling out every night. They are selling out their principles.
Well, they mash up the crickets with wheat flour and olive oil to make like a paste.
Yes, and it is for health. For people who are actually into lifting, like I am, it could actually be good because it's 12 grams of fat for 30 grams of proteins. That's incredibly protein-dense. But you are eating insects, so I will never eat the bugs.
Can you explain this to me, Nick? Because you've mentioned this before. You've got this idea of the WEF making us all eat bugs or some conspiracy theory.
They've been doing it. There's been this push to eat bugs. I'm like, oh, look, Robert Downey Jr. eating bugs. I'm a celebrity enjoying bugs. Nicole Kidman. Laura Dodsworth talks about it in her new book, Free Your Mind. I just interviewed her on my podcast. It's all this nudge stuff. And it's like, and now this is another example.
What's the benefit
We're
of
reading
bug
in the paper
eating?
about the joy of bugs. It's all to program your mind to
Oh, for goodness sake. No, I'm not worried about it.
They want you eating bugs.
Well, it's never going to catch on, is it? Because bugs are gross and I'm a vegetarian.
Yeah, but they phase out the meat, Andrew. It's how it works. They gradually get used to bugs. Oh, suddenly there's a meat tax. Oh, you've got to, like, you use up your carbon footprint.
No one's going to get used to bugs, Bruce. I mean, you remember that scene in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom where they have to eat the bugs and the monkey's brains and all that. People like decent cuisine. They're not going to eat mashed up cricket.
What if there's no choice?
Well, that is the thing.
Don't you start. Don't you start, Bruce.
Both of you.
Don't encourage him.
But can we just say that this Yum Bug pop-up ends tomorrow? But I think the thing that people really like it is that all this food is so low in calories, but it's protein dense.
No, that's what they do say, is that it's low calorie, high protein, high fat, that it's good for you. But surely it tastes gross. Crickets are gross.
Oh, I would imagine. I mean, any time these trials where they're eating eyes or testicles or...
Like the Jungle Show.
Yeah, or bits of backsides and all that kind of stuff, yes.
I mean, that's a punishment. It's not meant to be it's called a trial, isn't it? A bushwhacker trial. Well, it's not meant to be nice.
Well,
I mean, it's not a show I've seen, but I've read about it.
That's probably part of Klaus Schwab's plan as well. That whole show, yeah.
I just think that it'll never catch on.
Have you never watched...
I've never watched it. I've seen clips of it and I've read about it, but I'm not interested.
Too highbrow for Andrew.
I'm not going to go into the genre.
I really wanted to watch it last year because Boy George was in it, but unfortunately, because of the size of his veneers, I couldn't understand a word he was saying, so I stopped.
Right.
Yeah, Sean was in it, Sean Walsh. He's great.
Who?
Sean Walsh is a brilliant comedian and great guy.
And isn't Nigel going into...
Anyway, no,
for him. Speculation.
Yeah, Nigel Farage is going in.
Anyway, so to the Telegraph now for some news about Generation Z and holidays.
So I have realised that I think I'm Generation X because you can be a millennial up until 42. So
how does it work? It's between two particular dates, isn't it?
If you bear with me. What? I only have between... So it just says millennials 27 to 42.
Right.
So then this is the Gen Z people who... I don't understand why they're bothered where people are going on holiday. Like, do you not think...
Well, what is the story saying?
The story is basically saying that the Gen Z population can't think of anything worse than an all-inclusive holiday.
Really?
Staying in one place.
Why?
Because they want to go and see stuff. They want to experience culture. Have you noticed that on Instagram?
That's annoying.
No one has a life. They're making memories. Yeah,
making memories.
Making memories. That's the
thing. No, they're going to exotic places so they can share the images and boast.
Yeah, well, exactly. It was someone. I was reading someone's Instagram the other day, and they went, "Oh yeah, we've just moved house. Got a lot of memories to make here." And it's like, so you've got to do a lot of living there.
So this sounds a bit snobbish to me. So basically, the under 30s are saying, "Oh well, I wouldn't go to Torremolinos." Because that's something that chavs would do. That's effectively what they're saying, isn't it?
They're saying only 9% of them said they'd travelled with the sole purpose of relaxing. Yeah, because you don't work hard enough. They don't do any work, so they don't need to relax. If you work all the time, I was going to say like I do, although I haven't even been on holiday since 2017, that's why I'm so tense. But if you work properly, of course you need to just go to a hotel and just sit there in a sort of semi-coma. These people are like, oh, let's go and see the sights. Yeah, because you don't do anything. You don't have jobs.
Or is this... Well,
they're against cruises.
Are they?
Yeah, they're against cruises. They see them as floating prisons.
And that's where Bruce does most of his work.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
So, yeah, you know, I'm always...
I can see you on a cruise ship. Doing your Jane McDonald.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Giving a wink.
Yeah, all of that. Yeah, no,
They're against the boozed-up stag do. I do relate to that a little bit. It's not really my thing.
But is this just another one of those stories where, you know, it's a newspaper who wants to bash young people? I mean, it feels a bit like that,
it's
doesn't
very
it?
serious investigative journalism.
Sorry, okay, well, maybe...
They're against skiing, which I hate skiing. So I kind of agree with some of these things.
But you understand what I'm saying? They sound snobbish to me. They don't like cruise ships. They don't like the sort of stuff that
They're differentiating themselves from the previous generation. That's what all generations do.
So this is their form of rebellion?
They're rebelling against...
To not go on a cruise?
The fly and flop holiday, which is a term I'd never even heard in my life anyway.
That sounds ridiculous to me.
Flip-flops.
No, not flip-flops, fly and flop, whatever that means. We're going to go on to this story in The Guardian. This is about supermarkets in the north. Nick, can you relate to this one?
I absolutely can, because it's Booth's Supermarket, which is where I went as a kid. Booth's Supermarkets to ditch self-checkouts in north of England stores. So Booth's is the best supermarket. We had it in Windermere.
I've never heard of Booth's.
Yeah, because you're southern.
I lived in York for a year. There was no Booths in York.
Because they call Booths the Waitrose of the north, and Booths customers call Waitrose the Booths of the south.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
And what's the one in Scotland? Scotmid? Is that like this? Is that like Booths? No, that's a place. Late night, you can get something after a kebab.
We had Booths in Windermere, which is where I went to school, and there's one in Kendal and so on, and they're the best places. But what they're doing is removing the self-checkouts, though they're keeping them in a couple of locations, the ones I just mentioned actually, because large numbers of tourists. But anyway, and the question is, although I love Booths, I want self-checkouts because I don't want to deal with people when I'm in the shop. Obviously, because I'm famous, it's a bit of a problem, people coming up to me.
There's
But
the
also,
paparazzi issue.
You have to talk to people. But what they've done in Sainsbury's, which really annoys me now, you go to the self-checkout, but now you have to ask a wandering staff member who may or may not be there for a bag personally, like removing the whole antisocial point of the self-checkout.
Is that the point of the self-checkout?
Yes.
Simply misanthropy?
Misanthropy, and you can be quite efficient if you know what you're doing.
Yes, but I don't like it.
Which I don't do anymore.
No, because if you buy a wee bottle of wine or something, someone has to come over and verify your age, and I feel like I'm being shamed if I buy one of those can of mojitos, you know, that kind of thing.
I don't think you buy a wee bottle of wine.
Well, OK, it's one of the box. It's a box of wine, OK.
Right, no one likes that, and it's annoying, like, I am buying alcohol, and the whole,
And everyone watches you and looks at you and with that kind of, oh, you should be a bit more temperate, kind of judgmental look. I don't like that at all.
The funny thing is, so Bank of Scotland, who I bank with...
Yes.
They have moved in a lot of branches, particularly the one in Comley Bank in Edinburgh. You go, what do you want? And you're like, well, first of all, get away from it. And if you have, you know, cash or anything like that, and you're trying to put it, I'll take you over to... And it's like, no, either take me to a till or just let me do the transaction on my own. And this girl said, no, I'm going to have to watch you do it in case something goes wrong. And I went, would you not be as well just going on a till? You'd really put my anxiety
Well, exactly. What's the point?
Yeah.
Well,
the worst ones are in Primark. Because you need to keep your receipt to get out.
Are they really that militant?
Honestly, yeah.
Oh, well, I'm never going to Primark then.
Oh, I had a terrible to-do in a hoo-ha there with a bath mat the other day. The woman... so I didn't have the receipt, right? And I said to the woman, I said, and I don't even have a bath anymore in one of the places. I have a walk-in shower, but I thought I'd get... Anyway, long story. So I said, can you take that back? She went, no, you don't have the receipt. I'm not legally bound to exchange it or give you a gift card. And I went, surely you are. And I said, well, just keep it there. You can't keep it in here. She chased me out the shop.
What?
And I said, keep it for the Secret Santa.
Bruce, you never disappoint. You've always got an exciting, thrilling anecdote.
The other thing Sainsbury's do, they now make you. One of them said the other day, I've got to beep the plastic bag for you. You've got to ask them for a bag. They come up and they have to physically scan it for you because they can't trust you to put
ridiculous.
It in the bag.
Well, look, very quickly, we've got time for this Daily Mail story about dogs. Bruce.
Some people may think this is ridiculous. I can see the point of it. And basically what has happened here, a divorced couple's dog is legally a family member and should be treated like a daughter. This is a Colombian court rules. And the owner wins legal rights for visits after pet suffers emotional trauma from split from wife. Now, the thing is, having had a dog always has a preferred caregiver.
Is that right?
That is right. So I'm not saying the dog isn't happy with the new arrangements, but in any couple, the dog likes.
You know what it is?
better.
It's because they're pack animals and they see one as the top dog.
Yes.
And so the dog does face trauma. This is quite a sweet story anyway. It's nice that the dog is...
The dog's really changed status status in my lifetime. When I grew up, the dog was a sort of utilitarian appendage. It was there to, to kill and bring food back for you. Not that, but it became part of the family. You know what I mean? Like more and more so. They're like people now.
They are. They should be treated like one of the family. Anyway, that is all we've got time for. So let's have another quick look at Saturday's front pages before we go. The Times is leading with "Respect our sacred day," Sunak tells protesters. The I Weekend, we should be getting that up in just one moment. And the I Weekend has got Braverman faces sack for going rogue as PM prepares reshuffle. The Daily Telegraph is leading with police ready to use force against protesters. That's to do with the Armistice Day march. The Sun has Knowles' mega divorce and the Daily Mirror torn apart. The Daily Star is leading with unexpected human in the bagging area, which is the story we were just discussing. Those were your front pages, and that is all we've got time for. Thanks to my guests Bruce Devlin and Nick Dixon. Leo Kirst will be here tomorrow at 11 o'clock with Nick and Lewis. And if you're watching the 5 a.m. repeat at the moment, please do stay tuned because now it's time for breakfast.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app.